Hello to the chess chicos and the chess chicas. Today is a super exciting video coming for you because you quite likely participated in the making of it, dear viewer, or at least many of you have done so. It is because I posted on Twitter this exact position that you see now on the screen, and I surveyed a fair bit of people. Quite surprisingly, a large number decided to partake in this, wherein I asked 3 questions rating whether you play the dragon with either color and your preferred move here with white. Now, a couple of things before I go into the actual analysis and I reveal the big secrets. First and foremost, I don't mean to sound judgmental when I go through the recommended moves. I simply would like to give you here a very detailed, precise and thorough rundown of what's going on. So please do not take it as I'm sounding condescending or anything like that when I respond to the proposed moves. It is merely a super fascinating position in my opinion, which I gained a lot of pleasure out of, and I would like to share with you my very limited knowledge on the position. So there is that. And also, please do not feel like if you find in the end that your recommended move was not the right one, that you were wrong. Because first of all, as you will see, there are actually very subtle differences between certain moves that were mostly recommended for white, and two, and this is very important, when you see on social media a position and the question like what would you do, and it's not a direct mate puzzle, it doesn't measure you at all, because it's not like a scenario as if you were in a game where you had half an hour to consider what you would do. You calculate lines, you really engage with the position to the best of your ability, right? I posted it on Twitter. I assume most people looked at it, went like, yeah, that one, and moved on, right? So you didn't necessarily have a chance to give your best. So reflect on this if you tend to take things a little bit more personally like that, so that we know that this was not necessarily the best possible effort. So without any further ado, now comes the big reveal. So I think it's best if we actually start from the very beginning and I show you how this position occurs. So we are talking here about a variation of the Sicilian Dragon, which begins with 9g4. So this is a sideline which intends to prevent black from playing d5 in a different way rather than the stock standard Yugoslavian attack with bishop c4. A lot of people don't know that bishop c4, first and foremost, is not a developing move because this bishop stands so amazingly on this diagonal, but fundamentally this move is designed to cut d5 out. And as soon as you look at what the most popular other moves are, you understand what's going on here, because castles is best met by d5. This is a textbook case of how one doesn't learn moves, but understands the concepts behind them when trying to, become an expert or at least a decent player of a certain opening. So g4 is designed to stop d5 by means of playing g5, kicking the knight, and then picking off the d5 cherry. So one of the most popular lines against this setup is bishop e6, castles, knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, queen a5, and pawn to a3. Now, king b1 is a possible move here, but it is vastly inferior to a3, a rare exception, because king b1 doesn't resolve the problem. In fact, in some ways, it actually enhances it, because now after rook fc8, I have got this game-winning threat of rook takes c3 followed by queen a2. And as you can see, king b1 walked headfirst into it. So now I am forced into either playing a3, which then begs the question of why would you play king b1 then in the first place? Or I can play maybe knight d5, I think, but this is not going to be a lot of fun either. So a3 is the correct move. And after rook fc8, h4, and h5, we have arrived at the critical and questioned position where I posed what you would do. Now, let's stick with king b1 because I already spoke about this move, and this was one of the most popular recommendations, mostly from lower rated players. I don't mean to say this is a judgment, I'm just assembling the facts that I gathered from the survey. Now, what was very interesting is that many of these people, that's another move that was suggested, by the way, who recommended king b1, they all seem to be very keen attackers. And note here the contrast between the move and the mindset. Almost all of them wanted this to happen. And that already speaks a fair bit about the issue with the move itself. Because the intention is to blast the position open on the king side, yet the move does absolutely nothing whatsoever to accomplish the goal. It's up to black whether they take on g4 or not. Unfortunately, and this is the second problem with the idea, takes on g4 is actually not playable, but by far the best black's move here in this position. And once again, unfortunately, trust me, I would like it the most to work. There is absolutely no chance we can break through here. The most direct approach, of course, is h5. When black takes with the knight, bishop takes g7, king takes g7, and hereabouts we realize that we hit an absolute dead end. Our pieces are not developed enough. fg makes no difference. Rook h5 doesn't work because the fifth rank is still open for the queen. And so the most logical move here, to my mind at least, would be to play bishop b5 with the not so subtle intention of hitting this guy in the head next move and then penetrating with queen g5. But unfortunately, both rook c5 and rook h8 sufficiently deal with this issue, and black is winning here. Now, granted, instead of h5, I could try something a little bit more realistic like bishop e2, but even here, after take rook c4, it's very easy to see that our attack is just not there. Like, there is constant counterpunching tactics coming at us from the black side, disallowing our attack to unfold. Last but not least, in case your idea with king b1 was to sell the knight d5 cheapies, please be very, very mindful of the fact that once the rook is gone from f8, this is not a threat. Like, if I play a pass, a total pass, and you play knight d5, you realize now that this doesn't work, because I can simply play king f8, and when you take the queen, I take your free piece. If you instead insert the check, then the whole mission was a total fiasco again, because we are ending in this endgame where, even if I didn't have this, very clearly white has accomplished nothing. So, sadly, king b1 has to be dismissed on account of being inefficient and slow. The next big dilemma, which I think is best presented parallel, side by side, was g5 and gh5. If I recall rightly, they came in roughly about 50-50. And I suppose in some ways they do the same thing, in some ways they do the polar opposite, right? So g5, in my opinion, as a player who has played this system for... Actually, this is one of the openings that I have played the longest in my life. About the age of 16 on, I have played this dragon line for pretty much my entire life. So, g5, generally speaking, tends to turn into a failure simply because there is not going to be enough room left for white to break through on the king side, and usually black is quick enough to put some pressure on us on the queen side. So what it looks like in chess language is knight d7, bishop takes, king takes, and for argument's sake, let's go with f4. It appears to be the most aggressive move, trying to break with f5 at an opportune moment. Unfortunately, once again, it is easy to see that black is quickly playing rook c5, rook c8, and the stock standard dragon exchange second c3 is already a pending or looming threat. And yeah, it's just, I don't feel that we will have the time to build up for f5. A very interesting line that I found with the help of the engine was queen d4, king g8, rook g1. By the way, finding this already is quite a... For most players, this would be a stretch, because this is actually a defensive measure. The idea is to play rook g3 to cover the knight. And so I stopped the analysis about here, with bishop g4 to be played next, concluding that, in my opinion, I can't possibly see how black could be worse here. I'm not saying that black is necessarily much better here either. It's a very dynamic position, but I feel like black has got more to do here than white, especially after something like rook d2, queen c7. The tripling up on the c feels very intimidating. My knight is glued here, rook is glued here. And maybe a slow but steady queenside push with the pawns may become a thing. But I feel like I'm definitely not going to be able to hurt white, or excuse me, black, on the king side and in the center. And so on that note, I discarded g5 here as a potential candidate, provided that I definitely wanted to score some level of advantage. And with that, we move on to GH, which I find the most logical first move attempt, because it tries to blast the position open where we are meant to try to blast it open. Right? Knight h5 first. Bishop takes g7, king takes g7, and this again is a very, very typical dragon scenario of this particular line, the 9g4 variation, where it just happened to be the case that we traded off our best attacking pieces. So that was the d4 knight and now the d4 bishop. And whatever is left is insufficient to generate a dangerous enough attack. And in particular, the f1 bishop seems to have no purpose whatsoever in the attack against the king side. So the best we could come up with is to play bishop h3, at least trading this guy off. But once again, after bishop takes, rook takes, and let's say queen e5, it's just not enough. Like, we traded too much off, right? And I don't even have a clear path to attack or a clear vision of what I should do next in order to hurt black. So once again, I don't really believe that white has enough here. Maybe the engine says 0.3 or thereabouts, but to me it's too minuscule. For the record, I would like to mention that I even struggled converting positions like this with white. And here the engine definitely is going to tell you that white is doing absolutely fabulously. But the reality is that this position is a royal pain in the bum to play with white for a human. And the reason for that is because the very unique pawn structure creates a situation where, despite the fact that there are a fair number of pawns absent from the board, there are 0 open files. There are plenty of semi-open files, but no open files available. And so, your two rocks are not going to be super helpful to convert this. And if you see a plan like king f6, knight f4, king e5, rook c8, like black has got so many super easy and good-looking moves to play. It's quite scary, actually, to play this with white. And I hate to, talk against the cold hard facts of the engine, but I would not enjoy myself here with white at all. And I will go a step further. I think if I played against a player as strong as myself here with white, I would really, really, really struggle to score a win. And I dare say that on a bad day, I would potentially even lose some. So anyway, this wasn't it either. And since I already revealed twice, you already know the answer to the question, which was the least frequently mentioned moves, by the way, in the survey. And that is that white's only means to a sizable advantage is the very unexpected queen g5. Now, when I decided to pose this position as a question to the world of Twitter and, to the internet, my agenda was that would people be able to, or would people be willing to consider thinking outside the box and throwing a queen trade offer in a position that is apparently massively about an opposite side king attack scenario where whoever hits first is gonna be the winner, and it's all about the race and attack and sack. And so when you are in that mentality, it's extremely rare. Well, it's not fair to say, but it's unlikely that one would naturally think of a move like queen g5, which very strongly goes against this concept of let's go and attack. But it is also a move that once you just look at, you can't help but realize how good it is. Because it puts the queen trade on the agenda, but in a way that is very annoying for black, because after takes, knight h7, gh5, no question whatsoever about who is better or who is worse. Knight g5 is only, and it is only after f4, I think, when most people realize that the poo hit the fan here big time, because knight f3 loses a piece. And so that's not playable, nor is bishop takes d4 followed by knight f3 playable. And so all there is, apart from going back, which is very dark and sad and not happy at all, white is completely winning, is the speculative exchange sacrifice here with rook c3. Actually, there have been a few games played for this, but this, I would feel confident that I would beat, you know, someone of my strength with white. This is how the line goes. Takes, rook e1, bishop takes, and bishop d3. And despite the fact that here we also lost a pawn along with the exchange, somehow this position feels a lot easier to play for white. One reason for this is because our rooks are a heap more active, and two, because we have got immediate targets that we can directly attack or undermine. Neither of these two things were given to us in the previous exchange sack scenario, and indeed my engine here claims a 1.3 advantage to white, which is bordering the very good to totally winning evaluations. So yeah, and this is black's best after queen takes g5. Surprisingly, well, let me rephrase that. To my greatest surprise, but you might not find it surprising, the engine's favorite move here is b5. And up to now, I couldn't figure out why the evaluation is what it is, but apparently after GH, knight takes, the engine thinks it's not tragically bad, but white is definitely, excuse me, a pawn up here for not a lot. And that is pretty much black's best. And I don't think that there is anyone watching this who is thinking, yeah, this is not good enough. So, yeah, the long story short is that this very surprising and unusual queen g5 is the best move in the position. Unusual? No, it's not unusual. I should not have said that. And actually, by the way, I also am going to reveal this, but it's really irrelevant. And in fact, I'm not even going to show you the full game. But this position did occur in a game of mine, which is where I solved the question. I did play queen g5. And again, I'm not even going to show you how the game went, despite the fact that I won it, because I don't want to sound like I'm bragging. However, I want to show you something that I think you will find interesting. And it explains why I did find queen g5. Not because I'm so great. No, the reason is different. The reason for that is that in this dragon main line, I used to play this variation. H takes g6, H takes g6. This was all in my opening files, by the way, back in the day, 25 years ago. We all worked this out with International Master Laszlo Hazai without any engine assistance. And here our genius idea was queen g5. And it was an altogether different concept, which was to pin the pawn on b5 and allow white to triple up on the h-file and score a sensational checkmate with a potential queen sack even. I will show you this because I think I did have a game like something like this. I'm not sure if queen h6 wins here, but I hope it does. Yeah. Yeah, that was the idea. Take, and now the threat is check and checkmate. Not bad, hello? Yeah, and if take and g5, I think there is a very, very sexy... Yeah, bishop d3 wins here. Yeah, very nice. Takes, check here, and mate. Actually, it's particularly beautiful. Matutski. So, and I played this line for a fair while until I played a game against an international master in Hungary who was a big aficionado of the dragon, which is about every second international master in Hungary. And after my queen g5, he uncorked the very rude and shocking d5 over the board, and I was completely busted. I managed to save the game to a draw, but this completely rejected and refuted this queen g5 idea for good. The very clever concept behind the move is that if I take on d5, then all of a sudden this pin gets turned back onto me, completely reverse, and now it is all about the black attack on the king side, queen side rather. And yeah, this is, trust me when I tell you, I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty here. It's Carnage City. You can forget about it. It's over. I think e5 from memory is the move that keeps the board somewhat steady, but it's very clear that my mate ideas are not happening, and b4 is a pending threat. Good luck, Chuck, holding this. Not a fun scenario. Last but not least, another reason why queen g5 occurred to me, and this is another awesome motive to know in this setup. I had an almost identical position a year or two, no, a fair while ago actually, where instead of playing rook fb8, my opponent played a6, h5, b5, takes, and then queen g5. And in this position, they played queen c7. And there is a motive here, which is also applicable to the position that I posted, so I will show it to you here. So if in this position, black goes back to c7, there is a sensational win. And I actually found this over the board when this opportunity arose in a different game that I just showed you in a different move order with e5, de, bishop e, queen c5, and here, quite shockingly, there's a forced win for white to be had, a very beautiful one too. It is bishop takes f6, doesn't matter which way black takes back, and rook d8 check. And after rook d8, I pick off the free queen. If the king goes up, I take the queen, and after rook takes a8, and white mops up with the extra piece. So, long story short, to conclude this potentially rather long video now, the best move in the position that I posted was queen g5, which was a probably unusual, irregular, and perhaps unexpected move to many of you, especially those of you who don't play the dragon with either color. I hope that I managed to highlight a fair few important concepts and motives. Once again, the goal was not to prove most of you wrong and very few of you right. I don't necessarily even think that everything I said in the video, you know, would not be potentially refuted by a stronger engine or whatever. But I think that I did a fairly... I did justice, I think, to each of the move and the ideas. And I think that this is an ultimately really, really good way to grow your chess knowledge, especially if you play an opening like this. Set up a position like that as a regular scenario, analyze, explore, try out different ideas, see how they work. One of the best ways to learn a lot about chess. So yeah, that's gonna be it from me, guys, for now. We'll see how the internet responds to this and how YouTube responds to this. If this is a format that is going to reach a degree of success, I might repeat it with other positions in the future. So let's see how we go. Please don't forget to chuck that like button or smash it rather. Please comment down below. That would be great. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.